How you doing, guys? I'm Carlos with BuckarooGear, and what we have for you is a how-to video introducing a brand new product that we'll be offering on the BuckarooGear.com website. And what these are acrylic template and tap-off pattern sets. This one here in particular happens to be the same exact teardrop spur strap pattern that I've been using for a number of years. The beauty of this product is not only is it a template that you can go ahead and trace out and cut a set of teardrop style spur straps with, but it also doubles as a tap off. And what I have on here for the tap off is a single flower layout with a couple of leaves. I guess you'd call this flower a California wild rose. It's got some stems or vines and stickers. And whether you're a seasoned leather crafter or you're just a beginner, this will be an invaluable tool for you to go ahead and practice your flower carving. And not only that, but get a set of templates for a teardrop style spur strap. Each set comes with a right and left side, and then you got to have this. This is your buckle fob template. Can't have a set of spur straps without buckles. So anyway, I hope you enjoy this video. It's going to be a multi-part video. I'm going to go into detail on how I go ahead and carve this layout, the tools I use, all the way through to the finished product. In this video, I'm going to go ahead and paint these. You don't have to paint them. You can just oil them. I'm going to double and stitch them. If you don't have a sewing machine, no problem. You can make them a single layer spur strap. You can just oil them. You can antique them. You can go from mild to wild. Whatever you want to do depends on how much time you want to spend. Anyway, you can go to the BuckarooGear.com website right now. These are available for purchase. Get your set now, and we'll be offering some other products as well. It will be underneath the Leathercraft Tools section on the BuckarooGear.com website. If you have any questions, hit me up on Instagram at BuckarooGear. You can leave comments below here on YouTube. But, you know, I'm not on YouTube that often. I'm going to try to get better about it. I'm going to try to get better about being in front of the camera. I'm not really good at this either. But anyway, hopefully you enjoy these. We'll go right into building these. Okay, so these are some of the tools you're going to need to do this flower carving layout. Not all of them are 100% necessary. There's a few of these you can get by without. You pretty much need flower center. Let's see if this will focus in. There you go. So this is a Berry King flower center. We don't need to really get too much into the weeds on brands and sizes, but this is I would say this is a medium large flower center. I like to bevel my lines with a check beveler, and these are Berry King bevelers. And they're checked. They're fairly steep, and brand new camera. So if these aren't in focus, I'll go ahead and add some photos here in the video of all these tools, so you can see them in focus. You're going to need some background tools of some kind. You can either use the old school matte simple backgrounder, which a lot of people use. They're pretty easy to run. This is the matte simple backgrounder that I'm talking about. I don't know what it's called, to be honest, but I don't use these. I prefer to use bar grounders, and I've got a set here in Berry King, and they are size 45, and here's a set from 3 all the way up to, that looks like 7 or 8. After bar grounding, you're going to need some shaders, and I am going in order of operations, the tools that I'll use when I go ahead and carve this out. After bar grounding, you're going to need some shaders. You don't need many of them. You can get by with one of these. A simple pair of shaders is really all you need. These are a few that I use pretty much on a regular basis. Camouflage tool, it's not 100% necessary, but I'll throw it in there and show you how I use this on the stems.
I'm going to do a real simple tooling here. I'm no expert. There's a million different ways to do this. This is just the way I've been doing it and the way I've learned and what I've been comfortable doing for quite a while now. A pedal stop, again, not 100% necessary, but it's nice to have a pedal stop, and I'll show you where I fit that in. Here is another type of parachader, and this is a vein parachader, and I use these a lot of times, or this a lot of times on the leaves. Not sure if that's in focus, but we'll see here in a minute. Here's a veiner. I use a veiner on the leaves as well. And then also some mule tracks, or I guess they're mule track tools. I think that's what they're called. But I use them on my layouts too. Okay, so these are the tap-off patterns. They're made out of acrylic. These first couple sets I've used or I've made are 1/8 inch thick. So you can wrap on them with a hammer a little bit. Don't wrap on them too hard because they are a little bit brittle and they will break. I'm going to see how these work out. You're with me on the first time I'm using these. I've been carving this layout for a while on Spur straps, and this is a new product I want to offer to fellow craftsmen. It's a simple flower carved layout. It's got a single flower and 2 leaves and some stem work. So anyway, but this is how you're going to get it. And I already started peeling the protective film layer off of it, but I wanted to stop and show you the way you're going to receive them in the mail. This is going to be the usable product, but with the film layer on them, they're going to have a little bit of a white dust. The laser machine that I engrave them on leaves a little bit of a white dust on the surface of the masked acrylic. And the first thing you're going to want to do is go and rinse them off with water. Just rinse them off with water real quick. You'll get that dust off of there, and then you can go ahead and start peeling this masking away. I've already started doing it on this one, but I don't know, for some reason I wanted to do it on camera so you guys can see. It's kind of fun anyway. I contemplated leaving or taking all this off before I ship them out, but I think leaving it on will help protect the product. And anyway, who doesn't like doing this? It's kind of like when you get a new electronic or whatever, you like to peel off the thin little protective plastic layer that's on there. So do this real quick and we'll get to work. All right, so the beauty of these tap-offs is they also work as a template. You're going to go ahead and trace this pattern onto your leather. You're going to trace your perimeter out and go ahead and hand cut it. Now I kind of cheat a little bit because I do have a die that I use to click these out with, and a homemade clicker press. Been doing that for quite a few years here, but like I said, this will be the first time I use this tap-off product, and I think it's going to work out really well. So right here we've got our Spur straps all cut out, ready to stamp, and well, you're going to want to make sure you have a pretty good moisture content on these after you've done your casing. For those of you who have never stamped leather before, you are going to have to put a casing on these, and a casing simply means you're going to have to get the leather damp. I just use a sponge and a bucket of water. I do not dunk these. I don't get them too wet. And like I said before, with a clicker, I usually will glue a liner on them and click them all out at the same time. That way I don't have to cut the liner after I get the main part all cut. After I get done stamping these or carving these out, I'll go ahead and finish them up and then and stitch them. You don't have to do that. You don't have to line them. You can make them single ply. It's totally up to you. It's up to your capabilities and how much time you want to spend. Okay, so like I said, these started to dry a little bit. I already had them cased up pretty good. They started to dry a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and just take a wrung out sponge. It's still damp. It's got pretty good moisture in it yet. And I'm just going to wipe these down real quick. Okay, now we are ready to tap these off. So with the tap-offs itself, I have this hammer that I use in the shop. It's an old, I think it's a shoer's hammer. I'm not exactly sure what type of hammer, but it's a flat-faced, plain-faced hammer that I've got written on here years ago, leather only. I only use it on leather. I don't use it to pound in nails or set rivets or anything else. This is what I use for my tap-offs. I've been using tap-off, leather tap-offs for years, and it'll work just fine on the acrylic tap-off. But like I said before, you want to make sure that you don't hit on these too hard or wrap these too hard, because they are brittle and they will break. And really, you shouldn't have to hit them too hard. If you don't have a hammer like this, here's another little mallet I have. Some people use this type of mallet, and I think this was made by Osborne too. It's got a number 5 stamped in it. It's a hardwood mallet of some kind, and you could use this. Some people even use this for stamping with. I've seen people use these on stamping tools. You could use something like this, just as long as the mallet has a relatively smooth face, or the metal hammer, and you're not just wailing on it and hitting it too hard. So we've got our two tap-offs here, and I'm going to go ahead and just line up the pattern in the center as best as I can. Go ahead and eyeball that. And that looks pretty good right there. You want to keep your tap-off pattern stationary as you move along here. And you're just going to go along it and tap it right to left, left to right, and just be careful not to let the pattern move. Okay, so there you go, all done. That's tapped off, and it did transfer the pattern to the leather. I don't know if you can see that. Transferred the pattern to the leather. I'm going to go ahead and do this side. I think that leather was just a little bit too dry. The wetter the leather, the better the transfer will be from the tap-off. So, and like I said, it's a happy medium. You don't want it to be soaked, but you don't want it to be too dry. And you saw how much water I put on it. I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit more water to this one. Like I said, it's already damp before, and like I said, what I would call it was already cased and was ready to stamp. But you want it a little bit more damp to transfer a tap off. I'm going to go ahead and hit this right now while it's still sort of got that damp color. Turn this around. I'm going to try to line up this point with the point of the strap and try to get everything centered up here as best I can. Not to let the tap-off pattern move around. And this is a brand new tap-off, never been used. You can see some of the white acrylic bits and pieces are coming out from the engraving that the laser left behind, and it's not going to hurt anything. But when you first get your tap-offs, it might be better when you're running them under water to clean them up to just go ahead and scrub them out with a little toothbrush or something like that. That won't hurt anything. But you can see it left a pretty good impression. The entire pattern's there. We didn't have to trace it out old school like I used to do, and it's going to be a huge time savings. So we're going to go ahead and get to carving this and have a little fun, hopefully. One of the things I forgot to mention in the earlier part when we went over the tools, you're definitely going to need a swivel knife. That probably goes without saying. That's a given in flower carving, but you're going to need a swivel knife. This is a Berry King swivel knife that I have. I think this blade's a 1/2 inch wide, and I try to keep it stropped in stropped and shiny and keep it from getting dull. Every once in a while I have to run it over a whetstone because they do get dull. But go ahead and strop this up and do some knife cutting here. So I'm going to go with the one side, or the spur strap, that's a little bit drier. I'm going to do this one first. And again, I'm no expert. I've been doing this for a number of years, but you know, there's a million different ways to skin a cat. I'm sure at some point, according to somebody, I'm doing it wrong. But this is what works for me, and that's what the beauty is of leather work. There's a million different ways to do it, and there's no single right way, and you can make it your own. That's what I enjoy about leathercraft so much. And you'll find with the tap-offs, the line that it leaves, or the impression it leaves, is pretty wide. You can go inside that line, you can go outside that line. You can do whatever you want. You can make it your own. You can add some stems and vines to this if you want to. I try to go inside because I do need to leave a little bit of room for a stitch line around the perimeter of these straps. But if you're not doubling and stitching them or lining them, you don't have to worry about that. You can go ahead and do your own thing. Make it your own program. So, and this video is not really intended to be a thorough how to carve or how to flower carve type video. It's more just to sort of show you how to use the product, show you how I use the product, and give you some ideas on what I do here. So we've already got the right portion of this done. Now we got to go in and get some of this stem work done. Starting on smaller items like this is a good way to introduce yourself or get your feet wet on flower carving. What's really cool about doing something smaller like this is you have the luxury of being able to rotate the workpiece on your stamping bench. If you are a saddle maker and you're trying to carve a big fender or a seat jockey or something like that, it makes it quite a bit more difficult to rotate the workpiece on your stamping bench. And what I'm getting at is that means I don't have to rotate the swivel knife as much. I've seen guys that push the swivel knife, they pull the swivel knife, they'll go around a corner with it, push it away from them, come back and pulling it back to them, and man, I guess I'm not that good. I've always had the luxury of stamping some smaller stuff anyway, so I guess I don't have practice on doing that bigger stuff to where I've got to accommodate, you know, having to push and pull and get all these different angles and get creative with that swivel knife. But I get the job done. There we go. So that pretty much concludes, or that's pretty much finished as far as the knife cutting for this particular that particular side. We'll go ahead and do this one while the leather's pretty damp and I can get some good deep lines cut in here. Anyway, as far as order of operation goes, when I'm doing my knife cuts, I usually like to do all the flower features first, get the petals done on the flower, and then I move on to the vine work and leaves. Again, what's really cool about this is I can just rotate it right here. It's not big. I don't have to get real crazy with the swivel knife and use it, I guess, as intended. That cut's a little wide. I don't like that, but it's my first time talking and doing this at the same time, so it'll be all right. In case you're interested, this is Herman oak leather. Skirting and tooling is what my supplier calls it, and it's 9/10 ounce. Okay, so at this point we've got all of our swivel knife cutting done. The pattern's completely cut in. You could, if you wanted to, you could go to beveling and start carving. Beveling, stamping, carving, whatever you want to call it. What I like to do at this point is I like to take my dividers and I set it at about 1/4 inch, and that gives me a little bit of an allowance for my stitch line, and it gives me a border that I can back round up to. And part of this pattern is outside of the border, which is fine. I kind of like that, where it kind of breaks out of that exterior border from the interior to the exterior, gives it a little bit of character. And we will take you through from start to finish on this particular pair of spur straps so you see how I finish them. What I like to do. There we go. So I gave them all a little bit of a border. I'm going to go ahead and knife cut that border in now with the swivel knife, and then we'll go to doing our back rounding. So you can see where right here where the pattern kind of jumps outside of the border, the leaf jumps outside of the border, this bottom stem or sticker on the flower jumps out, this sort of jumps out, this leaf over here sort of jumps out. So it's kind of cool, adds a little character and makes it a little bit more lifelike. I'm going to go ahead and knife cut this one real quick. We'll speed this up because this video's going to be really long. This side is a little bit wet still. You can kind of see where it's dark in the center, and it's probably not quite ready to start beveling yet. The leather here is doled out. It's still a little wet right in here, but over here it's ready to go. By the time I get over here, it should be ready as well. So I'm going to go ahead and get my beveler out, and we'll start beveling.